We have a quorum though, so I'll call it to order at, what time is it, 6:36?
6:36.
I see. Do you want one of these, Larry, or you want to just share?
Sure. Shit.
And we have Penny, Carol, Tony, excuse.
Rick, we answered a good question earlier. What now? I think the good questions answered earlier.
Not really. He had an attachment, but all I had was a logo on it.
All right,
$250, 50-50 split.
so we are in the meeting now.
Okay.
And we're at the approval of agenda, or adoption of agenda, and I would propose, if nobody else would first, moving the golf, since Brian is here, up to the front.
I thought you were gonna say the bottom.
I say the bottom. I say the bottom. He has not sat through an entire finance committee, and we should move it to the bottom.
Sounds unanimous. You don't get a vote.
Or allow me to recommend it, and then you can vote.
He's the GM.
I will volunteer to call him when you're ready.
Should be 10 o'clock, Larry?
Okay,
It could be.
can, acclamation, can we move him to the top? As in, not the top, but
After the approval.
after the approval of minutes. Just before capital requests, so,
Yes,
okay. All right.
he orders for that, so.
Shucks.
Acclamation.
Outdone again.
I move to approve the minutes.
And,
Second.
all right, minutes approved. Somebody taking notes?
It'll be on the,
Well, we're hoping.
It's not live streaming, but it should be recording.
Yes,
as long as it's recording, Ashley will go ahead and take it directly off the record.
Yeah, we can do this again tomorrow if we need to.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Or you could go ahead and give her a verbatim report tomorrow.
I think that's possible too. Okay, so we have the adoption of the agenda, approval of minutes. Did everybody
I had
get a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah, we just approved it. Motion
Move and second. Any discussion?
approved is submitted.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Let me catch up.
We're moving.
And did we vote on that?
No, but we're ready.
Okay. Unanimous.
All right.
On to the golf. Brian, would you like to come up and sit at the table, please, and so that we can give you a place to rest your
Yeah, you can drill me.
paper?
So a few items on here. The first is the golf rates for 2019. We're making some fairly significant changes in both daily and annual memberships. On the daily side,
That's on page 33.
thank you. Yeah. Illegible.
Really?
Jennifer,
You know me better than that.
It's an ISM, Rick.
This is a par 5 page.
Take your phone, put on camera mode, and zoom in.
So, the daily rate's about $5 across the board.
Percentage change, please, about 12%.
Percentage change, I should have that on top of my head, but I don't, let's see. Depends what time of year, they vary so much.
You have that on the far right, Brian.
Oh, I can't, I don't have it,
So,
it.
10
I couldn't read it
10%
anyways.
for annual single member.
Those are membership
No, I'm
fees.
on daily, I'm still on daily right now.
Oh, daily? All right.
Mm. Group pricing, annual memberships.
Yeah, so the daily aren't on here, but essentially it's about a $5 rate increase across the board, which, depending on the time of the year, it's anywhere probably from about an 8% to a 12% increase on the daily side.
Sorry, the daily are on here.
They are?
Yeah. Thursday, nine,
Right.
18 hole.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so
Yeah.
9 is
So
20%
it's,
20%,
annually.
11, 25.
Yeah, depending on what time of the year it is, it's higher because the rates are lower. In the peak season,
May through September,
May through September,
we got 20% higher Monday through Thursday, 11% higher, Monday through Thursday for 18 holes, 25% higher Fridays to Sundays and holidays for 9 holes. 18 holes is 9% higher, so it varies from, say,
9%.
9% to 25%, depending.
At the upshot of this, Brian, you presented these rates to the golf club.
well, no, these are daily rates we're on right now.
So they're, the 25% is for 9 holes, Fridays through Sundays and holidays. And that
The
is,
significant rates, which are the 18-hole rates.
the 18 hole rates are 11% increase
Yeah.
and,
9%.
9%.
Yeah, so those are the significant rates, those are the rates that get used most often, so in that 8 to kind of 12, 15% rate on the daily side. And then onto the annual side, which is probably more significant, we are, my plan is to raise the rates, 11, where are those increases, Jennifer? Yeah.
So those are from 13% to 17% at the highest, but it's 15, 12, 13.
Pretty significant increases on the membership side. The thought being that we've had small increases for the last couple of years, but in the big picture, our revenues are going up each year, but expenses are climbing at a very fast rate. The big challenge being the
Minimum wage law.
Yeah, the minimum wage law is creating our biggest challenge, over 20% in the last 3 years. Increase in minimum, as of January 1st of this year, there'll be, I think, a 20% increase from 2016 when the law, was that correct, 16 or was it 17? 17, the $11 minimum wage came in 17. So it was $9.65 in 2016, and January 1st of this year will be $12. And then another huge shift comes for 2020, it goes from $12 to $13.50. So the challenges that we face in golf, and not just golf, but everywhere, is the wage compression. So it's not enough to just raise the people who are at minimum wage, because you have minimum wage people then bumping into your more veteran employees. So we've tried to, as best we can, to make accommodations for other hourly employees and giving them somewhat relative bumps. We can't, we're trying to do it based on a percentage as opposed to an actual dollar amount. So anyways, these are significant increases on our cost side. So our expenses are going up, so I'm going to need to even accelerate the rate of revenue increase. And the membership, the members are becoming a more and more important part of the golf course. We're seeing a shift in revenue, our 3 revenue streams being membership, daily play, and golf outings. For many, many years, the daily play was by far and away the most significant revenue stream. We're seeing less and less of that. The demand on the public side for public golf is increasing. So we are having to make up for that decrease by increasing revenue from the members.
Have you looked at the percentages of those in the transition of those 3 revenue streams? So, for example, for 17 or 18, can you give me an idea of what percent is the daily rate, individual play versus?
So, I got rough gross numbers. We were in 2015 just under 400,000 on the daily revenue side, and just over 200,000 on the annual green fee side. This year we'll be in the low increases to golf membership rates have been small, relatively small, 3 to 4%. We had a couple years, 2014, maybe 2015, where they didn't go up at all.
But they're still consistent, are they not, with our competition?
Yeah, so that was kind of my next point that I was gonna make, is that the other reason why this significant increase is justified is because we have been below our competitors. So this gets us much closer to being on a level playing field with our competitors, being the Avalons and North Bellinghams. Not, Bellingham Country Club rates are still significantly higher, but that's fully private golf course. So the other golf courses in the area that would be considered semi-private, we're now getting to where we're on a much more even level with them.
On both the daily rate and the annual membership options?
Yeah, we've been closer in the daily and lagging on the annual. So this gets us more on par on both levels.
And what was the reception from the golf club?
The reception from the golf club has been really positive. We had our annual meeting 2 weeks ago and kind of explained to them what's been going on. The members have been incredibly supportive of my efforts to grow the membership and to facilitate the shift in the dependence on different revenue streams. We had a really successful program this year, membership drive, where we offered property owners the opportunity to get half price, just full memberships at a half price level for their first year and 25% off for their second year. Kind of, I talked to the golf club before going forward with that promotion. I talked to the golf club to see, to gauge their level of support, because it's kind of, it's kind of like the Comcast deal a little bit, where you kind of punish your loyal customers by giving the newbies their deal, and that always kind of feels a little bit wrong. But overall, the golf members really understand that in the long run, it's very much in their best interest to have a stronger, healthier, larger group of golfing members. So they've been really, really supportive of any promotional efforts that I've taken.
Question along that thread. I'm seeing the annual memberships here for the members versus non-members, the residents versus non-residents. And by the way, are residents considered people that live here or people that are dues-paying members?
We call them property owners.
Okay.
Yeah, property owners. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm noticing that for the property owners, their rates are increasing at a greater rate than non-property owners.
They shouldn't, unless I've got an error. Basically, it's a 10% discount for property owners over.
It's pretty much the same. I mean, it's 15%, 50%, 13, 12, 12, 13.
Yeah, there's rounding. I've used some rounding with the rates and stuff, so it shouldn't be significant. It should be virtually
There's
identical.
only one. That's the young family.
Yeah, the young family. The young family is one that we didn't offer.
Well, no, I guess what I'm seeing is at the very first line, the annual membership for single, the change for resident is $15 change, where non-resident is only 12.
But the percent is the same.
No, the percent change is 10% greater versus 7.
So if you're looking at the monthly side.
Oh, monthly, I'm sorry.
Monthly.
Okay, so that's it. There on the monthly side, we were charging a 10% premium to pay monthly, but we've kind of done away with that, with the goal being to get more members paying monthly. Our goal is to have more and more on the monthly side. Monthly statistics show that when paying memberships monthly, people are less apt to not renew.
Sure.
So our goal actually is to shift more members, and so we reduced the premium that we were charging to pay monthly.
Is the monthly kind of like a health club membership where it's an automatic deduction from your account, or?
You can either pay it with a credit card or you can pay it with an ACH. Either way. Yeah.
So actually, there's no penalty paying monthly.
Very low. There is still a slight penalty in that we kind of go up on the monthly side. So it would be, and then the member fee, which it varies from from $45 to $110 a year for the golf club fee, depending on which membership you have. That is billed to the monthly members lump sum outside of these fees. So it is still essentially at this point still slightly more expensive to pay monthly.
Well, I look at the first line.
Single, annual
Yeah.
membership single.
Yeah. Oh, we're looking at 15, 20 annually versus 135 a month, doesn't that go up to 15, 20?
See,
That's
You might be looking at 2018 rates.
2019 is gonna be $17.50 annually or $150 a month.
Yeah. So 50, say 50 to, we say $50, or they say $50 but paying annually versus monthly, so it's less than that.
We reduced the premium to pay on an annual basis,
And
on
we
a
charge,
monthly basis, I'm sorry.
we charge them 3% extra if they put it on a credit card versus,
We are not.
we're not doing that anymore.
We never charge.
We did a discount.
You discounted if you pay with cash, if you pay cash or check. You still do that, if you paid before January 31st with cash or check, lump sum for your whole year, you get 3% discount. That's still in effect.
Okay.
It'd be nice to see like history of the different types of memberships and the number of memberships and see how they're trending, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I've got that information, I don't have it here
Because I
today.
know we have more members in 2018 than we did 2017, correct?
Yes, we still, membership's growing nicely, and that's the other reason why it makes sense to make this shift.
I guess,
What are your membership numbers like now?
So if you count every single member we have, so you count a social member, which is the lowest level, $125 a year. You count a couple membership as 2, and you count a family of 3 plus as 3. We have about 467 members,
How has this grown over the last 4 years?
over 20%.
So your vector right now is you are growing. How do you compare yourself to the other golf courses in the region?
I don't have their numbers on their annual membership numbers.
So we're about 5.
Extemporaneously, how would you compare the growth and performance of the Sudden Valley Golf Course against your competitors?
Anecdotally, we're doing as well or better, I would say, but I don't have data on it. But one thing that we have seen, and also this is mostly anecdotal, but a big shift in over 300 home sale or property transfers, new owners
350.
per year in the last couple of years. And we're seeing a lot of these people are coming in, are moving here because of the amenities, and of course golf being one of the amenities. So we're having a lot of these people moving here because of golf, or even if not because of golf, excited to see golf and excited to join. So we've had a promotion where for the last several years, probably about 4 years old now, where new owners can get a half price in their first year. Different promotion from the membership drive that we ran this year, but great success there, good conversion rates there in terms of renewals. So we are definitely, I feel really strongly about Sudden Valley going forward, just in terms of the fact that we are the only golf community in Bellingham. And we're growing, and there's more people moving here who want to play golf, want to live in the golf community. So I expect this shift in terms of the different revenue streams to continue to where we eventually get level and then even go beyond daily play on the revenue side.
How does the golf course compare here in Sudden Valley to the other golf courses to support the rate increase?
So this is a big shift too. Several years ago, when Jacob and I came on board, we were lagging dramatically behind our competitors in terms of course conditions, and that has been shifting every year, getting better and better. This year, these last 2 years, I would say have been a huge shift. I think a lot of it takes time. I don't know that we're that much better this year than we were 2 or 3 years ago, but our reputation has changed dramatically. The word of mouth is really powerful. The word of mouth, our reputation in the golf community this year rose exponentially to where the word on the street of the Sudden Valley was kind of the place to play in the summertime.
Don't forget that Facebook marketing.
Facebook marketing, yeah, that was helpful. But ultimately, word of mouth is huge in golf. Golfers chirp to each other, talk about.
There's so many people that play less than 5 times a year, so maybe they got it here once a year, or maybe they haven't been out for a while.
That's a good point, yeah.
So just again, all this information is anecdotal, but some that I've talked to, that are just like, wow, this course is so much drier than it used to be. It's got a reputation as being a swamp, and that's changed. It's taken a long time of hard work. But the more data we can collect and so then as I'm thinking, I'm like, if we could have information like how many people played in tournaments. I know we just had our first Winter Series event and it was sold out with a waiting list.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Actually, you turned people away, is that correct?
Yeah, there's 10 teams or something on the waiting list, so if we could track the number of memberships in addition to the revenue over the years, and that's great information for the community to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like in the men's invitational this year, when we had like, 15, 20 more teams
Yeah.
than we had before, I mean, that wasn't just a fluke.
Yeah.
These swing data that supports what we know, which I think we can get through number of people participating in tournaments, number of members.
Yeah, I've got all that stuff.
To be honest with you, I think what would be really nice, and obviously we don't have it today, is to look at history for maybe the last 3 years or something. And,
By membership type?
well, by revenue stream. And
Oh, okay.
so presumably, when you entered the next year, you came up with a plan as to where you were gonna target your marketing and where you were targeting your rates,
Mhm.
your whole business scheme as to where you were trying to grow.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to see some data on the history of that and what changes we implemented year on year on year, and the feedback that we got from the data as to was that successful or not successful, or what was successful and what wasn't successful, and then potentially have a target, 1, 2, 3 years out as to where we think we want to be 3 years from now and how we want to get there and what we want to do, and then get the golf club and the membership and the volunteers behind that so that the whole community can drive that effort forward. That's all I'm saying.
And we do, and certainly like at the annual golf club meeting, we had all that data, and I showed them for the last 4 or 5 years, all the growth by membership type. Didn't put dollars beside it for the members, but certainly had the trend with each membership type. And yeah, the golf club, as I mentioned earlier, a huge factor in our ability to go forward, because they're very supportive of what we're doing. The hours that they donate, that's had a huge impact too. I think over 1,200 hours this year alone donated by golf members and non-golf members.
Well, let's do some hard numbers. I think to what Rick was talking about, right? The volunteerism is really nice, all right? But what does it mean to a member? So this year, I think right now it costs $1.06 a month per membership for us to have a golf course. And you're projecting about a $30,000 loss at the end of the year. Rough numbers?
I think higher than that.
A little higher. Okay, now we projected before this change an $88,000 loss next year. But if this change goes in, this would then bring it back down to the $1.06 amount, roughly, that members would have to pay for having a golf course here in the association. Is that about correct?
That's the hope. Yeah, the hope would be that this would help, that this rate increase would help drive us down into that $30,000 to $40,000 loss range.
Okay,
That's the hope.
so then the question to you, sir, is how is Sudden Valley Real Estate doing overall in the market? And I believe Sudden Valley is still doing better than 10 to 12% right now in the market. So an average $350,000 house is making better than $35,000 to $35,000 a year. Of course, if you sell it, that's when you realize your cost. And so $1.06 a month compared to what they're making in market, the golf course is making the membership money. I think that's the question. What does it mean to the membership in the association? Is it adding value or is it taking away value?
Well, the other thing I don't think the community recognizes is what's transpired and where we're heading, and what we're doing to try to accomplish our goals. So I think that's a message.
There's a lot of data that shows different ways that the golf course is contributing towards the community and the trajectory that the golf course has been experiencing, and understanding the fact that this is a long-term process.
Well, so those are operational dollars, right? We're talking operational.
Well, absolutely.
And so a lot of the community complains about the capital expenses. And they will bring up numbers like losing $200,000 in capital depreciation, but don't they
get their, aren't they eligible to reclaim their portion of that when they sell?
Yes, so the reason that the capital is not reported on net with the operational here in the meetings, and the reason that we operate as two companies and one is an operational company and a capital company, is that the capital portion of all the dues that are paid go towards the members. So when you sell your home, anything that you've paid in capital dues, whether it's your personal home or a rental home, goes into the basis of your home. Like if you put on a new roof, then you get to add that to how much you bought the home for. So all the capital dues that you paid, you get to add on like it's a new roof. And so even if we were a for-profit corporation, we still wouldn't get to, the association still would not get to deduct the depreciation, which is the capital portion on the tax return, because it's the homeowners, the members and the homeowners own the depreciation. And so that's why we report it separately and we break it apart as an operational company and a capital company. Well, that's one of the reasons why.
That's the membership's money.
It is.
It comes down to it. That's the membership's money. We just had an issue with a Canadian member the other day who came in and sold a property that they had since the 70s. And the government was holding their profit. And Jennifer ran a report and said, here's all the dues that you paid into it. I'm sorry, that comes right off the top. And so they were able to get that money back.
Well, actually, I said that I am not a tax accountant and I can't advise them, and I gave them a tax accountant.
We did,
I
but
can
we
advise them, but
ran the report for all the capital dues that we paid, and they can take it to their okay, we did not give.
I did not provide tax advice.
The other thing that I think that goes into Brian's argument is that frequently we stay very close to the realtors in the area, and they're monitoring how houses are being marketed, and 90%, 85, 86% of the houses that are being marketed in Sudden Valley say, let me tell you about the amenities, and almost all of them mention the golf course.
Yes.
So to say, well, the golf course isn't adding value, well, the realtors will tell you that they're using that as a marketing ploy to sell a house in Sudden Valley. Overall, I believe that the numbers that Brian has come up with are putting a fair amount of the burden for the golf course onto the membership of the people who are using the golf course, and not unduly coming back and asking for an unfair or lopsided proportion of funds from the membership to carry the golf course. And they're putting it on the members, and the members have acknowledged that they're willing to accept it because it's within market for
You're
the
saying
value.
membership and then also members, and so he's making an effort to make the golf club members bear more of the burden of the financial.
Thank you for the clarification. You are correct.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I think it's great that he feels like we're in a position where we can place, 15 to 20% increases on the golf club members who use the golf course, and the members that it's been proposed to them and they've accepted it and said,
So the operational budget is about a 15% increase?
This rate increase was done after the budget was created, so this will hopefully be
This will
additional.
be a gravy.
The hope is that this will help cut into the deficit.
I have a question though about the cutting into it. The cart fees, golf cart fees, the rentals are regressive.
Actually, not just one rate. The golf cart, the daily golf cart rentals, which is where we get the bulk of our revenue, is staying the same. There's one rate where we were out of line with respect to our competitors. We were high. Was on our annual cart rate. We call it cart license. It's basically a rate to pay to have a cart to use one of our carts on an unlimited basis for the year. We sold very few of those, and part of the reason I believe is that we were out of line high. Most of our competitors were in the $500 range, and we were at $630. So we're going to reduce that. We sold one just yesterday, actually. A guy came in and noticed a rate increase, and he ponied up a guy that hadn't done it before because of the rate drop. So my hope is it's always a risk when you drop a rate, because you need a significant increase in sales in order to first break even, and then in order to actually to do better, you need a significant amount of people to jump on board. However, we only, I think about $4,600 a year we bring in on those rates. So my goal wasn't actually to turn it into a cash cow. My thought wasn't that we were gonna sell hundreds of them because we dropped the rate. It was more, part of the way I'm selling this increase is that I wanna get in line with other clubs, and we had a rate that was kind of glaringly out of line, so I thought it made sense to drop that rate and get that rate in line. So I believe my actual gut is that it'll be more of a neutral, in terms of revenue, it'll be more of a neutral deal. I think it'll increase revenue.
I believe that we have substantially made over $100,000 in carts each year on our lease, which this is a segue into the next item. I asked Brian to look at 3 different actions that he is bringing forward over the entire golf enterprise right now, and one is the carts. And so you brought up the cart issue, and so I'd like to bring that up.
Yep.
Do we need to approve the golf rate?
Yeah, let's back up here for a second.
Okay.
One more question about the fees. I didn't see the boards, the cart boards,
Those aren't owned by the association, those are owned by me.
that would be a good reason why.
So I move to approve
Although I
the,
will point out that we let Brian know that if our cart sales dropped because he brought in golf boards, that we would then have to renegotiate the discussion of the golf boards, because we would not suffer a loss in revenue on carts because of his boards. And what the numbers showed is that we had an increase in golf cart rental because of the golf boards.
No, an increase in green fees.
Green fees,
No, we had a substantial amount of, almost 80% of the people that come to play and use the golf boards came here exclusively because of the golf boards. So they buy green fees, and conservatively, in the 3 years that before this year that we've operated the golf boards, we brought in about $33,000 in additional green fee revenue because of the boards.
I stand corrected on that. The golf boards have not cost us revenue.
No, the golf courses have made substantial revenue for Sun Valley.
because we got green fees that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Weren't the golf boards advertised on national television?
CNN?
They got picked up on, they were advertised locally through 2 different, Como and King did news stories on us and the golf boards. And then Como's story was posted online, and it was shared over, I think, 100,000 times. And then a national web, it might have been CNN, but somebody picked it up and put it not on their television broadcast, but on their website. So yeah, we had a ton of it's been a no-brainer for the association. Finally this year I got to where I broke even on the boards, so I made it.
We wouldn't want you to make a problem.
It's been a no-brainer to over $7.
I move to approve the golf rate list as presented.
Second.
Any more discussion?
No, it's encouraging that we have such a big percent increase for the memberships and the green fees. It says that you're confident in your product, you feel like the customer base is there to support it. And
I would just like to see sometime in the future, kind of some history of the business plan going forward.
So would David.
Say again?
So would David.
Oh, David.
David loves metrics. David's gonna wanna ask you about metrics, so you should prepare for that at the board meeting.
Yeah, when you come to the board, maybe your presentation that you gave to the golf club with your data, if it's not too long, might be
No, he would like long.
I'm against that.
at the end of the agenda, right?
I'll make it concise. Yeah.
In that information, did you have the metrics for how many new homeowners have come in and purchased golf? Because I think that would be a little bit trajectory to show as well.
It would be a little muddled this year. It would be easier to show previous years because we had this promotion that they kind of ended up being running into each other a little bit. The golf drive, the membership drive, and the new property owner. So I would have strong data for the previous 3 years on the new owner purchasing memberships, and then this year would be a little bit. It would be less clear.
Even if you can't do something for the board for this time, I would say January 1st for the next finance committee. Who's ever on? Maybe interested in seeing some of that for you.
I just think it's a good piece of information to put out about.
Absolutely.
It's a good way to demonstrate the interest in Sun Valley directly correlated to the golf course.
Yeah.
The
Just-
progress of man.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
Good question.
Question's been called. In favor? Unanimous.
Thank you, sir.
Nice job, Brian.
Golf cart.
At this pace, we'll be out here at 11:30.
So I'd like to
Our
move
sergeant at
forward
arms.
on the golf cart question.
Capital life extension.
So, we do not have the numbers, we wanted to bring this in and let you know that our golf carts, will be paid for. Their lease is up in the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter, April. And we believe that we will be able to extend the, value of these carts for 2 more years. And so we will be coming in with a capital life extension to spend some money to ensure that the golf carts have the value to the market, are pleasing in look and operation to renters and users. And so we will be bringing that in at the next finance meeting. But we will be not asking for another capital or operational lease for another fleet of golf carts for 2 years, because we believe that we can do a capital life extension with a return on investment value that is a high ROI.
What was the original plan?
Well, the plan was to, at the end of the lease, which will be next year, was to evaluate the fleet. And if we felt like we could continue to go forward with them, then to operate them for a year or 2, based on their mostly cosmetic condition, but a little bit of mechanical, to see if they were, because they're stored outdoors for most of the year, it's tough on us. It was hard to say what condition they'd be in after 4 years, but I'm quite pleased with the condition of the carts, and I think with the refurbishment that we're planning, we'll easily be able to get another year or 2, probably 2 years out.
What's the annual savings to the operator?
$35,000.
No,
Not operating capital.
Oh,
capital lease, so it's a $70,000 savings.
Yeah.
Every year, Brian mechanically keeps the golf carts up to date.
Brian doesn't do anything.
Well, I mean,
I hope he doesn't. We're not going to give an extension.
Did you feel that bus back over you just now?
Linda's the only one on my side.
Wow, that was harsh.
Yeah, we take good care of them. Great.
we take
We
good
do.
care of them,
Brian
unlike
supervises.
most.
Make sure
Other
it's
assets.
not a big wrench turn. But
Just goes to show that when you take care of your stuff, it lasts longer.
And honestly, yeah, Jacob and his staff do the absolute yeoman share of the winterizing and then getting them ready for the spring, the oil changes, the semi-annual maintenance that we do on them. Jacob and his staff do a good job on that. And yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. I think the tree removal around the clubhouse has had a huge impact. These carts are holding up better than our fleet, the original fleet that was here in 2011. Not having the trees around has helped them significantly.
Great, cool.
We're just saying this is going to come in at the next.
It's going to be a package. It's going to be a package that's going to include replacing a portion of the fleet's seats, the bag covers. The bag covers are taking some beating, and some windshields, some tires, and some starter generators, which is a common part that fails. So it's going to be. It won't be a complete replacement for all of them. It will be probably, it's depending on the item, 15 to 30 to buy in bulk, get a discount on the purchase, and then install them as needed over the next 6 to 24 months.
Cool. Next item.
Next item, Brian dropped down to 60% time. We're now negotiating him to come back to 75, but the purpose of him dropping down to 65% was for him to focus on an outside activity that he's doing. But in that, he brought in a new First Golf Pro, and he is now doing marketing. And our marketing is taking off. And so we've got Brian and the Golf Pro sitting in a very small little office inside the golf shop. And we would like to repurpose portions of the men's locker room into a new office for Brian and a sales office for the association for corporate sales. And we are working up estimates right now for doing that with some contractors and also some exchange with vendors and volunteers from the association who are offering to volunteer their efforts. We will bring that number in at the next golf meeting also. But we've been looking at the overall golf enterprise, trying to find ways to expand the marketing, sales, and life extension of our capital equipment. And, well, you know, who cares about Brian? But working forward to get the program very much forward focused.
Are you handy? Do you do work for you and whatnot? You're gonna have some time on your hands.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because Chuck Luttrell walked up to me the other day and said, "You're 6 days away from working for me, Mitch."
Once Chuck gets his hand on you, you'll be wishing you had a full.
So he's like counting off the days, saying, "This is how many days you got left before I put you to work."
Well, it seems like when we took some lockers out from there to repurpose to the gym,
We did.
that some space was created.
I'd like to think it's an efficient use of some space that wasn't being used, so hopefully we'll be able to do it in a relatively inexpensive manner, and then repurpose some space that wasn't being used.
Those lockers went to good use. We took out 3 rows, and they went into the men's and women's locker rooms inside our gym area.
I thought that's gonna become a bar.
Perfect.
No, I'm sorry, no. But we repurposed the lockers for daylight. Stop this.
You're thinking about the wax.
Alright, great.
So we're looking to get more efficient use of the space, but we do need a sales and marketing area for us to be able to bring in corporate sponsors and members and separate the Golf Pro and Brian in the sales office from day-to-day operations. And so we will bring that estimate in next month.
Great.
That is correct.
Any other questions? Anything else from you, Brian?
You probably got some card schedule work on there.
I've got a Bellingham High School soccer game.
Oh yeah, get out of here.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for moving me up. Good luck with that, and appreciate you guys letting me get out of here. Thank you.
I think you should have moved him to the back end.
Well, that's
I feel overruled.
went for Linda, that's why I was saying.
Oh, Linda, did you vote on that?
No, I didn't vote on it, I simply suggested it to.
Alright, capital requests.
Yeah, capital request, roads, 30 Fairway.
First one, sir, is 30 Fairway Lane drainage repair. It's a funding request for a new activity out of our emergent project funds. There is a homeowner that contacted the association complaining that they were having a pond built up on their property, and they rather objected to it. We brought in our engineering firm. They determined that stormwater is in fact ponding in a ditch alongside Fairway Lane, and that the drains are above the height of this pond, which is a problem. So over time, rainwater accumulation is going to cause a deterioration of the road base, but it is not at this time. We would like to stay ahead of that. I attached to this request the Wilson scope of work estimate that they provided to us, and also the December 14, 2017 Wilson report that when we brought them in, the first time we received the complaint, that they went out and performed an evaluation on it, and then the drawing showing where on Fairway Lane this is. I did talk with the treasurer. We felt that this was a good use of our annual emergent funds, and so I'm requesting that we approve the design of this work this year with an expectation that we would construct in 2019.
So would these be 2019 emergency funds?
We would be using our fund, well, it's capital, so it rolls over, so we'd be using our road capital fund right now, and I'm asking for $36,465 allocation from the roads fund to fund the design in 2018. This includes a 10% contingency. This would be our expectation that we would construct in 19 if we pursued construction next year.
I'll make a motion to approve so we can have some discussion regarding something.
Sir?
Questions? So when I look at the layout that is here, just so I can better understand the scope. So page 10,
Got it?
so it talks about a new 12-inch culvert, road crossing.
Yes, sir.
And below that, it talks about a 12-inch driveway culvert.
I see the 12-inch road crossing culvert.
Downward 159.
159 is the existing culvert,
Right.
existing perch
And
culvert,
it
not
says new
receiving
12-inch
storm.
driveway culvert, and then new ditch along length of that road.
That is correct.
So my question is does, Wilson have to engineer, first of all, they talk about a survey being required?
They would have to do a survey and a topographical to make sure that the
So
inlets and the outlets are
there's a
correct.
cost for Christie or somebody?
No, actually, they have their own survey and topographical crew, so they would be
Wilson
bringing,
does.
Wilson does.
So is the cost of that survey included in this?
Yes, it is.
And does the design include both the road culvert and is there a design required for the ditch and the driveway culvert?
They have, well, we have a standard design already that exists for ditches and swales, and so it would have to conform to our standard.
So there's no new design work required for that?
I think that they would have to apply our design standard to the metrically to the distance. I would expect them to do no more than that, otherwise they're over-designing. I think you and I could agree on that.
We would.
Yes, we would. They would be over-designing at that point.
The new driveway culvert, would that be the responsibility of the homeowner?
If we have to install it to an existing driveway, then I think that would become our responsibility. If we didn't specify a driveway culvert or they didn't install one, and I don't know what year this house was installed, then that would be a sin of the past to the association for not requiring it. But if we have to install a new one to an existing, then that would be our requirement to them. I don't think we could go back and ask the homeowner to retrofit their driveway to meet an emergent flow problem. I don't think that would be fair of the association.
Well, it seems kind of odd because that culvert 159 looks like it goes right into that driveway. I mean, maybe the sketch
Let's take a look
is
here.
off. I mean, I'm just looking. East by this diagram.
On the diagram, it looks like it would be joined into the.
To an existing culvert. driveway
Yeah,
culvert.
so the culvert already exists between,
And her letter says that they couldn't daylight anything on that culvert to find anything going out of it, so.
it would not be our first culvert that we find buried and capped off.
It kind of sounds like a little bit of can of worms down there at 159. And I wonder if they're gonna design that, and I guess on Eric's, are we gonna be paying for that, and it's, I don't know, I'm just curious.
Well, they identified, in the 2014 plan, they identified all culverts. So they've got this culvert that was found, and I'm going to say verified, in the 2014 plan. Gate 1, Gate 2 were the first areas and probably the most designed out areas, and so they're the oldest. And so I cannot tell you what the problem is with 159, but I can say that you're looking at that they're going to put this in and connect to it, but it'll be a question of design.
And I guess that's my question on scope. It seems to me that if we're doing the new culvert, the ditch work, we're gonna want a driveway culvert, we're gonna want to look at 159 and deal with that intersection, if you will, at the same time, of culvert 159 with the ditch and the culvert, driveway culvert, what have you.
Because it'll already be dead end.
So if we can't find either 159 right now, we better be able to find it by the time we put a new culvert and a new driveway and a ditch in.
Now, I think that they're going to have, if 159 exists, which they say it does,
Right.
then they're going to have to go ahead and dig down to find out why it's not draining.
Okay, then, I'm just hoping,
Is that included in the scope?
that's my question.
I think that
Going a long ways around it, but I'm trying to get there.
Well, let's go back to it, all right? Let's make sure that we're very clear on that. So, as described, improvements include the installing a new 12-inch culvert under the road to convey the runoff. Forget the timing, land disturbance, forget the permit. Topographic is included, as we discussed. It's a preliminary design, and so cross-section and detail, forget that. That doesn't have as much information.
I don't see any actual construction here.
No, there's no construction.
This is all
This is
just
all
getting ready
design.
for it.
The
Yeah,
closest
this is
road
the
culvert,
design, right.
closest road crossing culvert is 159, an existing 12-inch corrugated metal pipe, which is not scheduled for replacement. The culvert inlet is perched highest level of the ditch, invert. The culvert's higher than the drainage problem. So water's not gonna flow to it.
The construction
This
won't
one
happen
is
until
existing.
next year.
Right,
It's a
and
separate
I'm saying,
request.
this is a new driveway.
Yeah, so we always do the design, construction is separate, we need an estimate back.
I understand that. My question is, with regards to the intersection of the new, whoever puts in the new driveway culvert, and whether 159 still functions, and whether it should function, and does the engineering deal with that? On this?
All right, so Rick, as I'm reading this, the culvert inlet is perched at the highest point of the ditch, and then scanning further down, the culvert would need to be installed at the ditch flow point. So we have two different elevations, which is why the water is ponding. They're going to have to lower the ditch and the culvert.
Right.
All right? And so they're gonna have to dig it up and lower it so it will accept water. Right now, it's ponding higher than the ditch.
Right, up there. But that doesn't mean 159, I guess the inspection didn't deal with 159, and I'm saying if we're gonna dig up on the left side of this page, whether that's east or west, I don't know.
Okay. I don't have that answer. They can't even tell us because it's just a preliminary look at. You have water ponding, and the water that is ponding is at an elevation below the lowest point of the culvert that can drain it out. And so we're
I
gonna
get
have
that
to.
part.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with that part. My only question is, I would go back to Wilson and I'd say, as we do this project, it makes sense to deal with culvert 159 and either abandon it if it's not necessary and not functional, and so no, or make sure that it's open on one end, the other end, so that it's functioning in
So I'm
concert
agreeing
with
with
that.
I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
All right, we asked them for a preliminary estimate, not for going out and doing an invasive field inspection,
Right.
which would have then determined and obtained
Well-
those answers.
Right, and they won't.
They won't know that until they go out and do an invasive field evaluation, which is part of what we're paying for.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that that's included in the.
Yep, I believe that it is included in there.
And I didn't.
I think your questions are very good, but they don't know what they need to know to answer that question.
I know, but it should be a piece of the scope is all I'm saying.
Okay.
It's not clearly identified as.
Okay, I think the scope is, we need to go out and invasively inspect it and tell you, this is what we believe it's gonna take to achieve the drainage.
And that's all I'm asking, is it
Do you want me
should be, at least note, or you clarify with them that the
Okay.
functionality of culvert 159 is in concert with the new culvert and ditches going in, that's all.
So if
I'm
I have their scope adjusted to say that they have to identify the functionality of 159, you would be comfortable?
asking. Yes,
Very well.
thank you.
Well, I would think that culvert 159, I doubt that it would have backward flow with the new ditch.
I believe the issue is that the culvert is too high.
Yeah, it has an invert elevation.
It's too high. And so they've got,
But I
because of
agree with
how the road was put in, the elevation of that low point in that ditch is higher. We covered this.
Yeah.
So, all right, I wanna go ahead and have them clarify the functionality of
As long as
159.
you're doing the work in that area, just make sure that all of the ditches and culverts are working in concert to save that road and not have the problem going forward in the future.
Okay, so,
I don't see that culvert identified on our original culvert study,
I
159.
this came off their map, so.
I was just looking for that too, and I
Oh.
didn't see it either.
Yeah, so I think it's a good point to have them added in.
Let's do it. Verify inclusive functionality of 159.
Okay. So, based on that,
What would you
we've
like
been
to do?
discussing and it would have a motion. Should we call the question now?
You want to
When we
defer?
approve, we can,
Oh, not for that.
that seems like a detail that could be added in.
I can add that in before it gets to the board.
Yeah. But,
I'm assuming your recommendation is you're pleased with the estimate and et cetera.
It's a swag estimate
Yeah.
without any invasive inspection, so it's
I'm
parametric.
just saying.
Yeah, I think it's within range of their parametric estimates.
Okay.
So with culverts, we just use Wilson and we don't ever get another bid because they do all of our work on this stuff and that's the way it is.
Pretty much.
So Wilson prepared a 10-year culvert study for us.
yeah.
And so we have not gone out and gotten other engineering bids after they prepared the 10-year study with the estimates. I was not here when they prepared the 10-year study, so I don't know if they got 3 bids in order to get that prepared. However, they are the most knowledgeable
But this one in
engineer in the
particular is
watershed.
not in the study.
This one was not in the study, no.
That is what they have both said. I would want to see the actual binder to look at.
And just for
It
some
would have to
history,
be numbered, and if it was numbered, I'd want to know how did we get a number without being in their study?
I'm just saying that it wasn't listed as one of the culverts D through C minus.
That's correct, but this is only their repair culvert list that you're looking at, not the total list of all the culverts.
Right, I was looking at the repair list because I wanted to know if there was a quote for 159 separate to see if that was
There
covered in the cost here.
It's not.
Yeah.
This is much like 447 that was done this year. 447 was not in the A to C list, but it became an emergent issue as it was discovered.
Because there are 2 stormwater plans. There's all the culverts identified, and then there's the ones that are
Referenced in the 10-year plan.
the failing culverts,
That's
D
correct.
through the C minus.
So would anybody like more information before we make
No,
a recommendation?
let's just
Or
clarify.
was it contingent?
one thing, a little bit in it. So for the past couple, 2-3 years, we've hired Wilson to do this 10-year plan on the culverts. Then we've also put a lot of effort forward on the ditches. So it really hadn't made a whole lot of sense because we're doing that comprehensive analysis and now we're working to put those things together so we can functionality, maybe do culverts like this and ditches at the same time in road work, which before we didn't have that information. But now that we're finally getting all those things together, there is a potential in the future if we wanted to do some one-offs on particular areas to potentially do that. It really didn't present itself as a feasible way to go in the last 2 to 3 years. Would you agree with that, Mitch?
Yes, sir, I would. Yeah, we've just started.
At some point, and this is not, I'm not that interested in this stuff, it's not my wheelhouse. I try to pay attention, but I don't grasp everything.
You don't want to tear up, here's
No,
the
no,
shot
so
of Rick
can I
said.
just finish what I was gonna say?
Well, no, Cole, no. Go ahead.
And so, yeah, I guess at some point, it'd be nice to,
Absolutely.
how do we know if just because someone was giving us really good prices and they've been really great to work with and we have a great relationship that we, I don't know if they have new people working for them at some point, but at some point where we sort of just put it out there to make sure that.
Check numbers.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
And I don't think anybody would object to that at some point, but I understand this is.
I think the next 10-year plan should be bid out.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
I would agree, and the next 10-year plan is 2024, but I agree with you, the question on In this particular case, there, as Jennifer points out, if you look on the A to C list, or the, A to C list, F to C list, it's not listed.
Yeah.
Where they put in estimates.
Mm-hmm.
This is an emergent issue. So we could go out and get another independent estimate.
I'm not saying that. You guys have that street, you've seen this before, you know what it's cost before. I don't have that knowledge. I'm not worried about that, but just keep it in general. So what we do, I mean, we have, every road has a ditch or a culvert, or did it one time, and there's some master plan, right?
And now we have a handle on that, which we didn't
So
have.
then someone put in a house right there, when you put in this house, and we can verify that they actually connected to a culvert that was there, and that was done properly, but then somewhere down the line, we don't know where the problem.
We could be dealing with the sin of the past here. We could be dealing with the person who went ahead and installed a house in the 1970s or 80s in this particular area, and they went ahead and landscaped an area, and then changed the landscaping so that they've now created a ponding area where the water is collecting below the high point of the culvert. That is possible.
But that's, we know that's not the case with this.
We don't think it is the case in this particular case. However, it is an issue. All right, and so by joining together what we've done now and asking for an integrated culvert, ditch, and road plan, we're hoping to have that laid out for a 10-year period where we've got these identified better.
Yeah. Okay.
I found it. It is cataloged in the stormwater mitigation, in the full report.
It's there.
It is there in the full.
159 is
Yes,
listed.
159 is in the full report.
It had to be, because they gave it the number.
No, but it's, it's not on the repair report, but it's on the stormwater master plan and capital improvement plan.
But they're saying they wanna go under the road and then bring it down in the new ditch?
No, they're saying that these are the issues, and they want to go do a design to determine what the problem actually is. They're just identifying, here are the tangent issues. There's no question water is building up in this one area, and it could drain across, but and the nearest drain is 159 for a culvert to attach to it, but that culvert's not draining in this area. They need to understand why.
And the design is gonna cost $36,000.
And field investigation. They may have to actually go in and run cameras in and expose it.
But yes, they are recommending installing a new one under the road.
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
But that would be construction costs, but they would have to, there's a lot of engineering involved in it.
There is,
Roger, on the,
I'm not.
you're on the committee.
Oh.
Yeah. You understand this stuff, you ask questions.
there's approximately $70,000 included in the roads budget every year, plus inflation for emergent issues. So as far as budgeting goes, that's where this would fall under, is under an emergent issue, emergent culvert. I think it's 72,000 this year.
Now, I heard earlier that it rolls over every year. Is that?
No, it does not.
No, okay, so when I asked earlier about would this come out of this year's or next year's emergency budget?
We initiate it this year, it would come out of this year's budget, and then the money rolls over. If we assign the money, it stays there.
Okay, the assigned money, of course, stays assigned.
We close out this year's capital project and we start a new one next year with a new holding budget.
Now, haven't we had some emergency projects out of it this year already?
The 447 was the last emergent problem, and that was constructed this year.
Okay, and so
It was designed last year.
we have enough left in that emergency fund for this.
447 was added in as a separate design project in 2018, separate from the emergent
Okay,
budget. The other emergent project we had was Grandview, where the homeowner paid
25%,
third,
a third.
a third of the
Okay,
project.
And that was a $9,000 job. They paid a third of it.
This has been a quiet year compared to
right.
past.
And so I just wanted to make sure that if we approve this design money to come out of this year's fund, that we have enough money in this year's fund to pay for it this year.
Yes, there is enough money in this year's fund to pay for it. However, there is not enough money in this year's roads fund to fund all of the design projects for the culverts that were scheduled to be designed this year. So we do design in year one and construction in year two. So normally you construct year 2's designed in the summer and you do the design in the fall, winter for the next year's projects. However, we don't have enough money in our budget to do that design work this year. So basically all of the culvert projects will get pushed out one year
Right.
from the plans that you've seen previously presented.
But this one, because there is water cooling and causing problems,
Correct.
can be classified as the
An
Emergent.
issue.
Call the question. Call the question.
It's been called, all in
It's been
favor?
called twice.
Yeah. Okay.
Rick, we will have the updated, presented to the board to, address the 159 culvert.
Did we, somebody fix the Windward and Tar Lane pond that happens right there below the retention when it rains over there?
We had a lot of work done on it this year. Well, we're gonna find out. I'm hoping
Yeah, like, or a month ago, it was totally,
It's
yeah.
all over Facebook.
Oh, not on Facebook. But, yeah, when it dumped, like, a few weeks ago, yeah. it was-
there's far more work that has to occur over there. We did a portion of it this year.
Significant improvement.
Okay, moving on to.
My name is Matty Otley right now, and I'm asking to purchase and install fitness mirrors in this room, this wall. So Matty is requesting capital funds to install fitness mirrors in the multi-purpose room within the community center. Matty and the rec center is experiencing a resurgence of popularity involving fitness classes. Multiple contractors, instructors have signed contracts and waivers of liability for teaching classes, aerobics, dance class, tai chi, yoga. And we have additional instructors now that we're negotiating with to teach additional yoga classes, child's ballet, and Zumba. And all of those potential instructors that we are talking to have said, listen, if you had fitness wall mirrors, it would dramatically increase, and that's actually a quote, dramatically increase student performance and class participation. So we would like to put fitness mirrors to help the instructors and students along this wall. We talked to 3 different vendors, Dulles Glass, Fab Glass, Mirror, and Lindale Glass. Solicited all 3. The quotes are attached, and all 3 provided. Of the 3 vendors, 2 of them are web providers. Lindale's a local company. The quotes requested the mirrors and framing, shipping, and installation. 2 of them were pretty much non-responsive. Lindale Glass offered to cut the mirror on our behalf and install. We'd like to take the ballet bar that's up in the dance barn and move it about right here, whatever right here is, and have mirrors below and above it. So the quote is, we're requesting $3,098 from SURF for the purchase and installation of fitness mirrors. Fund, the request includes mirrors installation tax and 10% contingency. The quotes that you have in front of you are from Dulles Glass and Fab Glass and Mirror, and then Lindale. The only problem I have on the Lindale is they did say that they would cut the mirrors to match the bar, but I read this and it was not in their quote. I called them, they said, we'll do that, and it's not in the quote, so I think it should be in the quote. That's it. That's Mandy's request.
Would everybody like to make a motion to discuss this?
Motion to discuss,
No. Motion to recommend.
motion to recommend for the council.
It's emergent, it's not in the SURF plan, and it is based on the fact that we have a brand new rec program that was funded and started in June.
You need a second, I'll second.
I'm sorry, Rick, I apologize.
Just wanted to take it off.
How much revenue is coming in from the people that have signed contracts?
I don't have that information. I'm sorry, I don't. Do you have any idea?
I don't have, let's see, I think that there are currently 7 to 10 instructors who are going to be teaching classes.
12 different programs?
12 different programs. And then your fee is relatively small. It's not a huge amount of revenue. think it's $72 for 6 classes a month? It's a pretty small fee. All the instructors, to my knowledge, are members, which makes the fee smaller. So, I mean, I would say that in a year, there's probably $2,000 to $4,000 of revenue. So you should break even in the first year. To Seven Valley.
Now, is this, the revenue that goes into the gym, is that being accounted for as, with respect to rec, operational, tagging?
Yeah, so the gym memberships, if you're a member, are free. And then if you want your other people to come, or if you're not a member, then you pay for that. The instructors, they pay us a flat fee in order to teach their class, and then they charge their own fees and collect their own fees. We don't know what they are. We don't really care what they are. They're paying us for the right to teach here. And then they provide us with a contract to indemnify us. Seven Valley, they provide us with a copy of their insurance, and then what their plan is, what their class is, so we can advertise it, and then how often they're going to be here teaching.
So if a piece of equipment is purchased for the recreational facility, let's say a couple of kettlebells, and those things are going to be portable if this place ever moves to somewhere else. So they're an asset that the kettlebell isn't going to be destroyed.
The kettlebell wouldn't be capital, but it's operational, and it would
It's
move.
portable.
It's portable. As
Well,
with the
would
mirrors.
the mirror?
Well, yes and no. The bar that we have upstairs came from the adult center. And there are mirrors still in the adult center behind the bookcases in the library. And we just made the decision a couple years ago to leave them there. And they're encased behind bookcases right now. We're asking for these to be bound and to be framed so that they can be moved. Those are glued in place.
Okay. So if we bought $3,000 worth of kettlebells, would that be capital?
Yep. Suppose we bought them all at once,
Because it's over $1 amount?
because it's over $2,500.
Okay.
Is that like that's a hard and fast rule?
So if it's over $2,500 and it's going to last more than a year, then our capitalization policy, unlike most other companies, is really low. The threshold is $2,500, and so we would capitalize it. I suppose that it's kind of a gray area because you'd be ordering, I don't know, 500.
Why would you order $2,500 in kettlebells?
You'd be ordering 500 kettlebells.
Well, I'm
No,
using that as a
just-
simple example, but one weight machine might be $3,000.
Would be more than $500, would be more
Way
than
more than
$2,500.
$2,500, and it's going to last more than a year.
That would be capital, and we would still be able to move it. It's portable, we'd still be able to use it. It's
My
not-
question is about the kettlebells. If we got $2,000 worth of kettlebells, would that come out of the rec budget?
They don't have capital.
Right, I know, it would come out of the rec budget, but because it's less than capital threshold, and it's still enduring equipment that would last for some time.
I mean, I would say that in the case of these mirrors, just like in your example of kettlebells, it's kind of a gray area. This request is asking for 6 mirrors. 6 mirrors to be purchased and installed and cut and wrapped is over our capital threshold limit. So that is why we're here asking for those funds. I mean, you could make the argument that it's 6 mirrors, and if you divide the cost over 6 mirrors, that each of those mirrors is underneath the capital threshold limit, and that we shouldn't be here asking for these funds. However, Seven Valley's policy is that if it's over $2,500 and it lasts more than a year, then we should come here to the finance committee and to the board, and we should ask for those funds. I mean, you could work around that, but why would you? It's not the purpose.
If you did not, you would fail possibly in an audit, wouldn't you?
What's the, I don't understand the intent of the question, I guess. What are you trying to achieve?
The intent of my question is, I'm trying to establish where isn't it a gray area, number one, as Jennifer described. And number two, a lot of stuff is intended to come out of the rec operational budget that was approved in the SGM. And there are expectations around that, and I think some of the expectations are if they purchase the kettlebells, then they are going to recognize some of the additional revenue from classes that are taught in kettlebell classes. I'm just making these hypothetical
Let
things
me
up.
answer that question. We're doing an improvement to the facility, and it's a capital improvement. And if we attempted to buy, let's buy 2 this month, and 2 next month, and the 2 the following month, and 2 the following month, any auditor that would catch that would then say, I'm sorry, you just went ahead and circumvented your capital purchasing policy so you can make it an operational expense. And we would take a hit on that. To be very fair,
To be transparent.
I think we need to be very transparent on it. Now, the funds that were provided to the rec people are operational. Now, you can use the operational money to purchase capital equipment. There's no question about that. All right. However, we're doing a capital improvement to the facility to enable the classes to occur. And I think rightfully so, you would use capital money to do so. The majority of the money that they have is for consumables and for operational expense product, not for capital improvement in the first year. I think it's a reasonable thing to ask the finance committee, or for the finance committee to propose to the board that they set up a structure for capital improvement for the rec department next year. But if we were to attempt to circumvent the policy, we would not be, it's wrong. It's
I'd rather see more momentum at the classes and have people signed up, see what kind of revenue it's actually coming in before approving this request. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's my take.
Well, my challenge is recognizing that I had this many things to try to look at or serve and cut it down to this.
And now we're gonna
Every single place I could possibly cut, even though we knew we needed it beyond belief. I can't justify things.
more things to serve unless
Even if it is only $3,000, I just.
Now, is the $2,500 policy, is that a board policy?
It is a board policy.
And so, couldn't that be, couldn't this request be brought to the board and have the board approve it out of either UDR?
UDR is operating.
Right, and again, operating can be used for this capital.
The board has that right.
Right.
I would, yeah, if the board wants to make that kind of recommendation, they can, I would make it.
So it's not that if we decide to not recommend this to the board, all is not lost as far as the hanging the mirrors on the wall. It just puts it in a different lane.
Would you like to recommend it to go to the board for their consideration for UDR?
Operational.
I don't want to make a recommendation on anything. I look at all the volunteer labor we're putting on all over this place, trying to keep things alive. You know, if the rec center and the people that want the rec stuff, I say, either let the board decide or let the people that are using this.
Yeah, if we start getting, if we get, classes and they're getting more filled up, we're getting more momentum, and that's, I would look at it differently. I mean,
Do we have any purview as a finance committee, any purview over the rec center's operational budget?
I understand both of your points of view, that you would like to see more income from classes before you approve this request, and that there are a lot of other items on CERC that are not getting funded this year, and that's very unfortunate. However, I think that this particular request becomes a revenue generator. Having taken a lot of fitness classes in my life, I'm not a very active person, but I will go to a fitness class and I'll show up. I'm held accountable, and so I'll show up. And if I go to a fitness class and there's no mirrors, I'm not going to come back. I want to see what my form looks like. I want to see how I compare in the mirror to the instructor, how I compare to the person next to me, and I want to know if my form is correct. And if I can't see if my form is correct, then it's not worth going to the fitness class because I could be doing it wrong. And I think that in order for us to achieve the revenue from these classes, that we should approve this request and it will pay itself back. Now granted, it does not pay itself back in the same fund, but at least we will be generating that revenue. And I think that we'll have a higher turnout of instructors and a higher turnout of people attending classes if we have winners.
Is that operational revenue
It
versus capital expense?
It is operational revenue versus capital expense.
It's a very good point. I totally respect it. At this point, I'm going to side with the side of there's tons of stuff that's been on the chopping block for surf, and I 100% want to see the rec center and want a fitness center here. And I could be wrong, but I'm not going to support it at this time. But
I'm back to my question. Does the finance committee even have purview over the operational budget money from the SGM for the rec center?
I could say that the money that was voted on by the membership is a special assessment that is dedicated to the recreational area, gyms, parks, trails, right? And so we have purview in that regard that is for those programs.
Right.
how is that relevant to this question?
The question, the relevance is that if we had purview over that budget, over that money that came in from SGM, then we could say the money would come out of the SGM dollars to hang the mirrors to get money to come into the recreational facility in revenue.
Just buy 3 mirrors for now, have it come out of the,
Yeah.
and then see how it goes, and then buy 3 mirrors in a couple months if we get a bunch of people sign up for classes.
Well,
Totally good with that.
it sounds like
circumventing.
it sounds like I'm not sure anybody wants to call the question.
Well, my challenge, I totally hear what Jennifer is saying, and I agree. I wouldn't want to go to fitness classes, but couldn't see whether I'm functioning in the same fashion that I should be. However, to me, the rec budget, I mean, we have parks, we have so many needs in so many areas that are associated with rec. We had an SGM that approved an operational support, and we've put efforts, but we talked earlier about putting lockers into the locker rooms, and we've tried to assess. So, being the one that's had a lot to do with surf, I can't approve it just because it.
As the general manager, I'd like to pull this off. I'll do the research with Jennifer separately, and we'll decide if we can bring this to the board as a recommendation to ask the board to waive on their decision or give an exception to policy on the use of the money from the rec budget. We'll pull for now.
Okay. Sorry, I feel bad.
You should.
I know, hey.
But
For you, I feel bad.
I hear what you're saying.
It could pay for itself, you know, I just don't know.
We want you to understand that Jennifer actually told me that, listen, why are you asking for this out of surf? It's not in the surf, it's not in the reserve study. She already argued all of that to me. And so we wrote this up because it was a request from the rec program. So she argued your point, we'll pull it, and we'll go bring it to the board and let them decide. Okay?
Okay, moving on.
Quiet pool shed replacement, sir?
Quiet pool shed.
This is in the reserve study, I'd like you to know. So we're asking for capital funding this is the design only, for the design to remove and replace the quiet pool shed and associated mechanical equipment. The quiet pool shed was placed into service in '93. It's a 100 square foot shed, 6 years past replacement in the current reserve study. It's directly adjacent to the pool. It houses the infrastructure for the quiet pool operation. As part of the shed replacement, the equipment would be removed and replaced, except for the skimmer. This will be removed and reinstalled as we place it into service this year. The water circulating pump, water heater, water filter are scheduled for replacement in 18 in the reserve plan. The CO2 chemical system is outdated. It's very expensive to operate. We go to a wet acid system. We're requesting a sum not to exceed $15,000 to obtain a competitively bid design to generate an estimate to remove, replace the quiet pool shed. We're gonna need a mechanical system, design, electrical design, and we'd like this to occur in the spring of 19 before the swim season. So that is what we're asking for. You have a copy of our actual CAD drawing of the actual building, the adult center pool equipment building, and then that's what you do have. I didn't attach anything else to it.
Has this been rebranded without my knowledge? The
Yes,
Quiet Pool from
it was
the
rebranded this year.
It had to be rebranded from the adult pool to the quiet pool because of legal requirements.
Okay.
I'd be happy to fill you in.
No, don't need to know.
No, come on, it's a 4-hour discussion. You'll love it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I have no issues. I just noticed that, yeah.
It was rebranded for legal reasons, as the vice chair said.
Got it. Great. Okay, so it was placed in service in '93.
It's visually, I've never looked inside it, but from the outside it looks pretty rough.
So I'll make a motion to approve so we can get on with some discussion.
Second.
Okay.
So what happens if we don't approve this?
Well, the skimmer,
We're on fire.
that's great. I got all night.
I just, simple question.
It's a good question. It's a good question. So we anticipated that it would be replaced in 19. The skimmer did not make it, and we had to stop the quiet pool, aka the adult pool operations for several weeks in the middle of the summer to replace the skimmer because we thought we could get through to next year. And we didn't quite make it. The sand filter is not in great shape. The chlorination system is getting more and more expensive to operate. I believe that the system is failing. And so if it doesn't operate, what's the downside? The downside is that we shut down operations on that pool, whatever its name is, until we repair the equipment. The shed is failing. The quiet pool.
We're not just replacing the shed, we're replacing.
No, we were replacing the shed and all the mechanical equipment.
Okay, well,
Right?
Except the skimmer.
The
Except
skimmer
the
That
should-
was done.
We'll
this
pull
year.
the
Done the
skimmer
skimmer.
out
Yeah.
and we'll put it right back in. It's actually the pump for the
Okay.
skimmer.
So in your crystal ball, you're saying if we don't do this work, that
Oh,
there's a high likelihood that the quiet pool will be real quiet.
It will not be in use.
That's what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying. And
I just wanted to hear.
we thought that we could get through the year after rebuilding the entire pool, and we didn't make it. We made it about a week and a half, and then we had to shut it down. So yes, the infrastructure needs are failing. We rebuilt the,
Okay, so it's a go or no go. Either we do this or there's a high likelihood that we don't have a quiet pool.
I'd say bet on it, you're not gonna have a pool.
where's the 15 grand come from?
We pulled that number out of air. The truth of the matter is that it's money to go out in the street with, but if we do this really intelligently, we'll be going to 2 different vendors who supply this equipment. We're asking them for quotes to do the entire job and not spend a penny on it.
You say if we do this intelligently?
If we
or
do it
consider not doing
intelligently,
it?
however, if the companies turn us down and say, give me a design first, then we'll have to do a design. Right? In the case of, I'll give you the example, in the case of the large, the infrastructure for the pool in this building, the loud pool. Oh, you're on fire tonight.
I
You're
thought
just,
this was for the design.
yeah, what's that?
I thought this was for the design.
For the main pool, we didn't pay any money for the design. We went to companies and asked them to quote doing the entire job, and they did the design as part of the quote. I don't know if we would be so fortunate because the work is not as large. That was a $64,000 construction project. This is not going to be anywhere near that.
Oh, this is to design and estimate replacement of the quiet, so this is not,
It says no construction whatsoever.
oh, jeez.
Have we,
I'm just out to lunch, I guess.
have we,
15,000 bucks just to get.
If we have to pay for a full design.
have we asked anybody if they'll look at this yet?
No, we're going to go to Sesco and try to find another company and ask them to bid. And if
Right.
we are fortunate, they will prepare bids. But if they come back and say your systems are too old, we're going to need you to give us a design back on it, then we'll have to pay for the design.
Seems like you go in and say, you find people that sell this equipment, you say, give us a bid on replacing the equipment, and they give you,
So we're gonna go off and play general contractor and then put together a plan for what the filter's gonna be, what the pump's gonna be, what the chlorination system's gonna be, how we're gonna do the disconnect, how we're gonna do the reconnect.
now, if I hire someone to put a new furnace in my house, they come out and say, I'm gonna give you a new furnace, it's gonna.
One single item, one furnace. This has many different components to it. And it requires a plumbing and an electrical system. We do not have that infrastructure. And so it's not going just to one contractor, it would be going to multiple contractors. I'm gonna attempt to go to one contractor that does pool supply equipment and ask them to give us a design. If they decline, saying we bid on any design you give us, then we'll have to give them a design. If it was a furnace, it'd be one item. Give me a quote on a furnace.
Do you have a better example that I could use to compare, or you understand this, because this is more your world, that we may have to pay $15,000 to get a design on replacing this equipment?
Well, my question would be, I might go to Cisco first and say,
Yeah.
can you come and give me an
Cart
idea
before
of
the
this?
horse here.
Which is what he's saying he's going to do.
Right.
Yeah, now,
Before I approve this, I guess is what I would come with that and say, you know, I'm not gonna get.
So we've been getting slammed at the board level for going to single source activities, right? So here lies our issue. We go to Cisco and say, Cisco, give us an estimate. We go to the board and say, here's Cisco's estimate, and we get slammed at the board. You only have one design, you only have one estimate. Oh, okay. Would you like me to get 3 estimates? Okay, Cisco's one company. Now, if the other 2 companies say, I want a design, are we in a little bit of a jam here? Because our rules require 3 bids. So if I only go to one company, I don't have 3 bids. I'll meet your requirement and we'll fail at the board level. Therein lies one of our issues.
So you go to one company and they give you a bid.
The board
And
says,
you go to 2
sorry.
other companies and they both say, we're not gonna give you a bid.
Cisco's the biggest guy in town.
So then I could go to the board and say, I got a bid, I have 2 copies of decline to bid from these other companies. This is all I got.
That's all I got.
So if you get something from Cisco, you don't think you could take the functionality of the proposal and get check estimates or what have you from Cisco?
I don't think I would want to take your functional design if you were the contractor to me. Yeah. How do you think that's going to fly if you caught me taking that? You'd probably say you used me for estimating and design work, and you might sue me.
If I'm on a board and, you know, you say, here's.
That would be a nightmare.
Yeah, well, you're almost done, but, here's Cisco's proposal, here's the cost, here's the design, here's a copy from company ABC Pools, declining a bid, here's a letter from the other one, and I'm on the board, I don't know any other pool companies, and I see the 2 companies are not even giving, not even putting forth a bid, then I'm like, what else are you gonna do? What else are you gonna ask me to
If
do?
my name was Colin Morrow, I'd simply tell them, well, they didn't want to bid on it, but I didn't offer to give them a design that they asked for. But if I was myself, I said,
Yeah, but you're saying, well, we didn't want to pay them to do a design.
they said, we will not quote on this without a design. We can't compete with Cisco. Cisco will do this kind of quote without a design.
And then so you say, here's the actual bid from Cisco.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's problematic. It's possible. But I have run into this problem with the board, Colin. I mean, all joking aside, why are you not giving me 3 bids? Because I did do a design. I have an idea of what I want to accomplish. This guy said, this is what I want to accomplish. Then the questions then begin to range. How do you know if this is a marketable price or not? What was what was the purpose? How did you come up with a basis of reasonable cost?
Yeah.
Did I go off and get an estimate from another company to say, how much will it cost to do it? No, I didn't do that. Well, what's the basis then? Well, all right.
Well, this is a specialty contractor.
It is a specialty contractor.
An HVAC or electrician.
It is, and so I should go to, so.
And there's not a lot of pools around here, I don't know if you've noticed. So,
And
it may not be like.
we suffered accepting the low bid from the company that did the loud pool. Right?
Subcontractor.
The subcontractor. Now we had our engineer beat them down and really argued with them, and they dropped their price $200,000. And the work was done. The work was done okay, but they were a poor performer, and they were a poor performer, and they were the low bid.
Just to clarify, no one dropped their price. The main contractor did not want to contract with the subcontractor that we contracted with for the bid that was $200,000 less, but they did anyway.
They did anyway.
And so we ran into some problems and some increases in costs, not to the tune of $200,000, but
If
definitely.
the school stands the test of time and we have saved some money in the long run, it'll all be.
It will.
We saved a lot more than 200,000. I mean, we really pushed it.
So let me ask you, so is your question, are you gonna go to Cisco and ask them to do the design?
I'm gonna go to 3 different companies and ask them if they'll bid on it. And if they come back and say, we want a design, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to get some design work done or pay some engineer.
Who are you gonna have to do the design?
I don't know yet.
Wouldn't that be the time to come and say, I want money to do design?
I could approach this that way too.
Well, is there a timing issue?
The timing issue is that we would like the construction to occur in 5 months. And so, if we're gonna go forward, I think I would like to have the ability to negotiate as I'm encountering the problems. And so I wrote it up as an amount not to exceed. If we have to do mechanical or electrical designs, I'm willing to bet that we'll have to do some electrical because there's gonna be lockout, tag out. And I don't think we want to encounter a lockout, tag out issue because we'll be accountable for it. So,
I don't know what lockout tag is.
that's where you disconnect high voltage electrical and then safe it out and then you have.
Lock it out, so somebody can't go in and engage.
Physically, you put a little tag on there and it says, don't re-engage me, and it's got a thing that goes through it and it locks the breaker off.
All the way back to the breaker panel. and
Isolating
so-
energy.
Yes.
Sounds
I
important.
guess the only
My
question,
husband's
He's the only one that
has
didn't
electronic.
know that. Everyone else know that?
Brian wouldn't know that.
I don't know that. Brian left already, but I think Brian knew it too.
I guess as long as you're gonna go and make as good of an effort as you can to get a bid without having to pay for design, then we all support it.
Yes. I would say that we could probably call a question, huh?
Call the question.
You need to, who
Because there was a
seconded
motion, it was seconded by.
Rick made the motion.
Rick made the
Colin.
motion, Colin seconded it.
To start the whole discussion?
Yep,
I did.
Yeah, that was Colin.
yep, and that was 10 minutes ago.
And I
Tom,
learned
what
about,
did you say?
and I learned about lockout tag out. My dad's an electrical engineer too.
And it's not just for electrical, it could be for
All right.
any sort of energy.
So let's vote then. All in favor of allowing up to $15,000 of negotiation room for the general manager to.
Sorry, I wasn't quite ready to vote. Do we need to change the word just a little bit based on the assumption that Mitch will make his best effort to get a bid without paying for design?
You know what, I'm gonna object to that, I'm sorry.
You object to that?
I'm gonna object to that.
Tell me why.
Yeah, because I think that I work to the association's best interest of all
I
avenues.
think it's his implicit job to do that.
Okay, I wasn't trying to say, I was more thinking about covering my own butt.
Oh, okay. I'll get you a sheet if you need it, but.
No, like you're saying, like, if it, yeah.
Well, we have.
It
to,
is in our best interest to get the best value for the association.
Okay, so before we call the question, let's just clarify what we're talking about so we all have a clear understanding. If this gets approved, can you just give Colin and Paula and Eric and I what you intend to do if the board approves this? First step, second step,
Very
third
easy.
step, fourth step. I think
I'll
that'd
probably-
be easy.
That's a great recommendation.
Outside of Sesco, I'll probably locate at least 2, if not 3, other companies who could specify the equipment required for this pool. It may not even be the same equipment, but pool specialty companies, as you say, it's a niche project. And I will ask them to come in and look at the equipment and give me a quote to remove and replace. And if they say, I'll quote remove and replace including the shed, great. And if they say, I can't quote without a design, what design do you want? And if they say, give me an electrical or a mechanical, well, what design do you want? and I will come up with the minimum amount of design requirements necessary, but I will ask them to quote replacement to new standard to meet code. And hopefully, they will submit estimates to that.
Great, perfect. And I don't want you to think for a second that I didn't think you were gonna do that anyway, because I'm used to getting things documented, you know, and so.
I'm
that's
feeling my
fine.
love, man.
But we also have a video going, so, you know, if anybody wants to check it, they can, so.
That's right.
Great.
Just to clarify, the motion you're voting on, is that as written in the capital request memo?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
And the only challenge I have is if we don't need this, and we do get 3 bids,
I don't have to spend a dime.
I know, but I've allocated certain money that I,
Then we go ahead and get the bids, we'll come back in and say, please kill the project.
and you'll do that right away without waiting a long time, so we can spend some money on something else.
I don't wait any amount of time to close a project.
Sometimes it takes
I-
a long time to
I
get that money back.
I only hold them open until all the invoices are in from our contractors. So if we're not anticipating any invoices,
You'll close
then it can be closed
Okay.
right away.
it. Thank you.
This is like the night
Well,
that plans and he doesn't trust the
The
staff.
thing is,
We've been there before.
well, here's
Take order.
the thing on this is, it's only for the competitively bid to obtain the design and associated estimate,
If needed.
if needed. And so if the project moves forward, then we all have already come to the end of this part of the project, I would think.
Yep, great.
Well, they come with another one to do the actual work.
Which is a separate
It's a
request.
separate request.
That's what I said, you come with another one.
Cool, all right, yeah, call the question again.
Well, the question's been called, and all in favor of going unanimous.
You'll be able to drink beer after.
You'd be glad when
Scotch.
I'm gone.
This next one is for Jennifer, please.
Arms.
I'm gonna turn this over to Jennifer.
Great, okay, surf loan.
Right.
You know, we've got several projects underway. We've been talking about an increase to our loan due to changes in costs from regulatory agencies mainly. And as a result of moving the sprung structure installation from barn 6 location directly to area Z. So that's, those were our main changes. And this has all resulted in things being more expensive than we originally planned. And so what we'd like to do is we would like to request an official increase to our loan of $500,000, bringing the total project not to exceed $2,272,476. And that's for the standpipes, the east and west gangways, the soft shore armoring, the sprung structure with the demolition of barn 6 at the back end of the project if there is contingency remaining. The 2 pools, decks and ADA compliance, as well as the project manager. So of that $2,272,000, $1,625,000 will be funded out of a loan. We currently have a loan approved at $1.125 million, so we'd like to increase that loan $500,000. The motion on page 21 will satisfy the bank, and then the bank will also get the attached budget, which is on pages 22 and 23. I'm sorry I couldn't have it printed larger. And so the attached budget shows where we are with each project. You'll note that the about middle of the page it has the loan approved budget, and this is in terms of the pool and the Area Z storage building, a different number than what you have approved by the board for the projects, because we had not updated our budget with the board, even though we had an additional approximately $56,000 approved by the board for the pools and for the Area Z structure. So we brought the paperwork to the bank said great, and then we knew there were some changes in cost. We brought those to the board said okay, here's an increase to your budget, so now we're bringing everything back to the bank. So this is just to wrap it up in a bow and give it to the bank. Of the additional $500,000 that we're requesting, quite a bit of it is contingency, and so hopefully we won't have to spend it. But we don't want to have to come back to you again, and we don't want to have to come back to the bank again, because it's a very tedious process to ask for additional money from the bank. We actually had to fill out a whole new loan application. I had to resubmit most of the documents that they asked for previously, as well as some additional documents. And so I'm really hoping not to do that again.
Did they waive the fees on that? Like,
They are waiving
Yeah,
the
they did.
fees. Yes, they waived the fees, however, they did not waive the paperwork. So, as you can see on page 23, there is $219,000 in contingency. Our project manager is recommending a 10% contingency for the Area Z barn, which will be constructed next June, because we missed our window of opportunity for the watershed this year, and for the Marina Soft Armory, which is our big unknown. What's under the water? We don't know. So,
We didn't miss our window on that. That's scheduled to start in November.
correct, we got a waiver to construct that outside of the watershed window. And then the additional $111,000 is the SBCA management contingency, and that's just to bring the project to $500,000. The bank said that how they're going to work it is they don't want to rewrite the loan documents, they don't want to increase the construction window. So at the end of the original 18-month drawdown, which is June of next year, they'll give us the balance of the funds up to the $1.6 million. We will hold those funds for the 3 months while we finish the project at Area Z, pay all the bills for that, and then at the end of that project, which should not be more than 3 months, we'll repay any amounts that we have extra back to the principal immediately. So we'll only be paying principal and interest on the $1.6 million for a 3-month period while we finish the construction at Area Z. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you need
And so
to have a vote on this?
I am asking for a vote of the treasurer's motion on page 21 and the attached budget on pages 22 and 23. For your reference, I included all of the prior motions and budgets that the board has approved through page 31 of your agenda packet.
We've implicitly, at the committee level and the board, especially during the committee of the whole, when we all got together at the board, we went through all of this and didn't get to vote because we were in the committee of the whole setting. So this just really, as Jennifer said, it dots the i's and crosses the t's on what's required by the bank for what we and the board have already implicitly approved.
It was like the pool was over budget by $39,363, is that what that means?
It was, and of that $39,000, we already came back and asked the board for an additional $26,600 that's not included in that 606,471, because this is the paperwork that goes to the bank, and the bank wants to see the number that they originally approved and the new number. The bank did not see the change orders in between, which are included on pages 29 and 31.
And then on the Area Z storage building, looks like it's over the approved budget by $278,000.
That is correct.
And
So,
what does that mean?
of that, the board already approved an additional $29,000, and then Mitch can speak to the other item requirements, regulatory requirements that have come up.
We were required, after we made the decision to move it over to Area Z, the fire marshal said I would like to see a fire hydrant. That was a $250,000 change on its own. And so the board said, well, we are going to go into Area Z. There is no infrastructure in Area Z. We will be pursuing that risk. We are going to put infrastructure in Area Z.
The fire hydrant is so expensive because it's partly because it's 10
Gold
and
plated.
yeah, right. It's
The fire
10 and a
pipe
half
to get
feet
to
down.
it, 10 and a half feet down. Just the OSHA plan to get to 11 feet down to connect is about $25,000.
Because of short.
And it's about 750 feet of
It's a lot of pipe. So Area Z is an undeveloped area, except for our maintenance area, and so with us wanting to do any work in the future in Area Z, now that we've got the contamination under control, we have no infrastructure there. This will now put infrastructure inside Area Z, including increased power, network, and fire water. There is a lot of fire water over there. Yeah, fire hydrant.
Fireball, fire, yes.
So Jennifer, what does this do to the committed fund allocations out of SURF on a year-to-year basis, since the loan is roughly 50% over what the initial loan and commitments were out of SURF?
Well, as Eric said, the board already implicitly approved this change because in the budget for 2019, it includes an extra $1.82 a month above the funds that were originally proposed here at Finance to fund the $500,000. So it does not impact the SURF funding from what you've seen before. It's going to be covered in the dues increase.
And the $1.82.
Right, and the $1.82.
Which is why I went from the 25 to the 27.
Yeah, no decrease to the SURF budget.
Okay, that was a month ago, I forgot.
Yeah, that was my conversation when I was battling with you and said,
Yeah,
why do we have to do it?
I remember. It's called coming back to me.
It's like a bad dream.
It just keeps coming back.
Thought I'd try to help.
Well, I understand the increase. We've been through this project. I don't have any further questions. Call the question.
Question's been called. I'll approve. I'll vote to approve. Unanimous. Well, let's back up 1 second here. I don't have in my notes who made the motion and seconded.
Paul seconded, and then Ricky moved.
I didn't do anything.
Okay.
Maybe it's you.
So, you know, I
Thank you, moved. You guys moved to approve it.
I think you did it.
okay.
Rick was snoozing.
Do you have the other RFP?
So, but to talk about, if I may, 6A.
Yes.
Right, so the status of the $500,000 is that it's an underwriting for the existing SURF loan increase. And we got our first loan draw of $292,325 on 10/10. They weren't going to give it to us because some of the budget items are over budget because they don't have a new budget yet. So I wrote back and I said, hey, we're in underwriting to get this updated. I think you should give us our loan draw anyway. And they went, oh, okay. So
You're such a persuasive person. Here's $292,000.
I was very pleased. Otherwise, they were going to ask for a lot more paperwork. I'm like, no, this is all going to be settled out when you finish your underwriting. I don't think we should have to do the additional paperwork. Okay, that's that on that. The audit RFP. I'm sorry, I probably should have printed it in the agenda packet, but we sent out our the audit is rebid every 3 years. We sign a 3-year contract. And so the 2018 audit is up for bid. We've solicited our current auditors and 2 other auditors who specialize in HOA audits. And everyone is excited to bid, and they're due back November 2nd. So we'd like a November meeting in order to review those audit RFPs. The RFP is the same as it was last time, just asking for an auditor firm who is licensed in the state of Washington to practice and specializes in HOAs, ask for references, nothing out of the ordinary as far as requesting an auditor.
Not local or
Our current
The
firm is
current
local,
local.
and then the other 2 are not local, Seattle and California. They specialize in HOAs. We found them at the CII conference.
oh,
Is our auditor PSH currently?
Larson Gross.
Larson Gross.
Mhm.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Okay. Who's the Seattle firm?
We are not advertising names of firms now. I'd be happy to cover that with you. Actually, I'll cover that with you openly. When we have announced different names of firms in audit, we've had members of the community who have decided to pick up the phone and call call those vendors up and talk to them.
Got it. Well, then don't know. That's fine. I just know, yeah.
We would be happy to share it with you privately.
And the responsive RFPs will be in the next agenda packet.
Now, the audit, we want to have that happen during the off-season, right?
For golf.
So the audit, the audit happens in 2 stages. Golf, historic, in 2016 and 2017 has been audited in the off season, which is number one, great for golf. They're not trying to do an audit in the middle of their busy season. And number 2, it gives the auditors another chance to be out here during the year to ask about any other items and see what else is going on during the year. And so we would like to continue that. I think that it's working really well. And so we would like to make a decision on the auditors in November, so hopefully we can get them out here in the December, January time period to start their interim procedures. And if we do choose a new auditor, there will of course be an additional cost in the first year because a first year audit is more expensive and more intensive than subsequent audits. They have to come out and do all of their first year internal control assessments. So instead of just saying, well, what's changed from last year, they have to say, what are your processes? I need to document them from the beginning. So of course that will be part of the discussion in November. But I'm hoping that we can meet in November to make a decision on that so we can schedule them to be out here in the December, January timeframe.
The reason I was asking is the level of urgency in getting this decision sooner than later.
Correct.
Which means November. Now, November, I'm sorry?
There's probably only going to be one board meeting in November.
Yeah,
Traditionally,
so
that's what happens.
what I'm looking at, the calendar of November, we have the AGM Saturday the 3rd. The first Wednesday, which would normally be finance meeting, would be the 7th. Now, there's not a lot of time between that Saturday and Wednesday to build a full finance committee. And so I'm wondering if we should recommend to the board at their meeting next week that they allow the finance committee to remain intact for that period of time, so that we can have that first meeting.
Finance is standing anyway.
So, yeah.
Yes, but the members of the committee have to be re-approved every year.
Yeah, so we have this down on item F, but we would be asking the finance committee to keep the current finance committee established, revalidate them until the new board is in town.
Well, the new board will be impaneled until
The new finance committee is
yes.
in town.
Just a month. A week. A week.
A day or 3 at a time.
So basically, that would give the finance committee and the board the ability to hit the ground running with this history. I guess I skipped ahead a bit, I'm sorry, but it seemed germane to the conversation.
A good point to bring up.
And so, if we could we're not voting on this right now, this is just informational, right? And so, I would personally like to see everybody come together to recommend that to the board when we get to that item. But are you finished with that item, Jody? Any questions? All right, let's move on to Brian did his thing, WeQ.
Great. So this was presented to the board last week, items both B and C. And the WeQ, I don't know if anyone banks there personally, but they had a big overhaul in their online banking system, and they switched from one system to a new system. And in that, there were some glitches, not just with our company, but with others as well. And so, any company that has an EIN was supposed to be independent of any of the signers on the account. However, our accounts were available to view on one of our check signers' personal accounts. They were grouped all together. Yes, and I was notified of this by the check signer, and immediately within a 24
Not to
hour
be named, but that person raise their hand, please.
within a 24 hour.
I would have loved to have been in a board meeting with WECU. They were, yeah, wow.
I ended up having a whole nother business account that, a bunch of money, and I should have wrote some checks.
As we said, you are not the only
We were not
person.
the
No,
only-
you weren't.
No, so we got that sorted out within a 24-hour period, and there are still, apparently, I was have a letter from the WECU saying that it was all straightened out. However, the credit cards, separate from bank accounts, are still available for viewing on that personal account, so I'm working on getting that corrected as well. At any rate, all the funds are accounted for, of course, and I just wanted to let the finance committee know as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I've got a letter from the bank for our auditing purposes.
On the deposit account.
On the building deposit account, we currently keep our building deposits with the WECU. We originally did that so we could stay within FDIC compliance, and that was when our building deposits were much lower. And so now that we have a $135,000 assignment of savings with the Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer District held at the WECU for our fire hydrant at Area Z, and we have $230,000 in building deposit accounts. We're over our FDIC limit, and so I would like to,
NCUA.
NCUA, thank you. I'd like to move the building deposit account over to our main banker, which is an FDIC because they're not a credit union, and put the funds in an insured cash sweep account. And so the board voted to go ahead and move forward with that. We wanted to let the finance committee know as well.
Cool.
Okay,
Sweet.
those are quick.
Payroll.
Payroll, okay, so, the payroll service provider, that's a management contract. However, I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the finance committee that we will be switching payroll service providers, that we've bid out this contract. It's been 3 years since we've bid the payroll service provider contract, and we're using ADP, and they said, hey, you're gonna have to switch and do new training anyway for timekeeping, and well, if we're gonna have to do new training anyway, let's rebid it. And turns out we were able to find a different payroll service provider, HKP. They are mainly an auditing firm, and then they also have an arm that does payroll service providers, similar to our Larson Gross, who also does our IT, which means it's not their main source of revenue. So they're very affordable, and they can add in an HRIS system, so human resource information system, for less cost than we're paying now. It seems like it's going to take some time to get it set up, so obviously that's not free in the transition, but once we get it set up, it'll save a lot of time onboarding and offboarding. This year alone, we're issuing almost 70 W-2s because of all of our seasonal employees, and we only have 32 regular full-time employees, so that's a lot of onboarding and offboarding during the summer months, and that will save a lot of time having all that be online. So I think that it's worth the effort to set up with a new payroll service provider. They've been in business since the 1950s and been doing payroll since 1985.
How much are we gonna save per year?
In year one, we are going to save, I think, about $1,000, because it's a little bit more in year one to get the benefit enrollment set up. And then in years 2 and thereafter, it'll be about a $2,000 savings based on our current employee count.
And we get better HR.
Plus we get the HRIS.
Much more services.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Good job rebidding it.
Mm-hmm. They've been the most responsive as well as for the people that we've been. We also bid a
You told
company.
ADP yet that we're getting rid of them?
I have not.
They're gonna be all over you.
Yeah.
They're gonna be all over you. No, I haven't, but I know, I mean, they've been all over me to try to get us to do stuff, and they're too expensive, so.
Yeah.
They were.
They are persistent salespeople.
They became unwieldy to work with.
Yeah, I don't.
And they don't know, one hand doesn't talk to the other. I've had the most frustrating conversations with ADP in the last month. Yeah. Oh, I think that this is related to the transition. Really? You don't say.
This is sarcasm. I want you to-
And you got some good referrals from this new company?
We do. We've had some good referrals, and then there also were.
References?
Thank you.
The references checked out.
Great.
Okay,
Cool.
any other questions about that?
And I think for quick discussion, we are looking at a main pool upgrade, winterizing our pool, and looking at coming in and allowing Sesco to build or purchasing a prefabricated system that will recirculate the water at low power throughout the entire winter, so we don't turn it into a green frog pond, and cut down on our costs at restart in the spring. And so we're looking at that, and I will bring it to you when we have decided what we want to do, if we're going to do something, and we'll bring it. I'm just giving you a heads up that we're looking at options.
Great.
We are asking for meetings in November. We have work that will continue on, and so we're asking if the board would set up some finance committee meetings in November. The finance committee will set up meetings in November.
Right, I would say we should keep with the same schedule, and we're having a board meeting next Thursday on the 25th. And so we need to make sure that this is on the agenda for the 25th board meeting to authorize the current finance committee to stay intact. And I would like to propose that we maintain the same schedule, or expect the same schedule, which is the 7th, Wednesday the 7th.
Wow. Anyone have any cough drops or mints or something like that? Rick, do you have any?
Scotch.
No, not scotch. Cough drops, mint, something like that? Jennifer's asking for one.
Sounds good.
Okay, so if we could make sure that gets on the board agenda, Rich,
Thank
the
you.
25th?
Board,
It's taking more than November.
November 25th board agenda to say, hey, board, can we please authorize the same finance committee?
very well. I will put it on there.
And I won't make it, Carol will.
Very well. Do you want the November 25th one?
Yeah, that's our next board meeting, October 25th.
October 25th.
Got it.
Just so that we can keep the ordinance coming going.
And you want the next finance committee meeting on
November 7th
November 7th.
at 6:30 here, where we can, the primary reason for that would be the audit RFP. And very possibly anything else that comes up between.
We'll have more items.
what the new year
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Have I seen this before?
And,
You just don't want the mirror Cuspicione to look at yourself during the meeting.
Got that right.
I don't want to break your mirror up.
You're sitting on this.
What is? Okay.
and so that's for 11/7. Now, we have the September financials, I understand, Jennifer?
The financials, I apologize, are not finished.
You're forgiven. Go ahead, next item.
Next item, all right, I'll send them out in another week.
Capital handout report is in front of you. I can go through the capital handout report if you wish. You're looking at the surf roads and UDR.
In a nutshell, everything's on budget.
Yes, short story, one more water sample in December. If the water sample comes back clean for Area Z, we are zero, done, finished on an environmental cleanup, all approved and done.
Great. I take these all a look at it at our own time.
I want you to do that. There's a test tomorrow.
Hey, can I request?
The total, sorry, is a correction, the total invoiced under the maintenance software 9884, for some reason that didn't pull through in the report. Almost all those funds are spent. I'll correct that.
Okay. I assume you're gonna bring this to the next board meeting?
Correct.
Okay. Could you please print it in color?
Yep, I'll print it in color, and I'll also add on the addition, there are 2 clubhouse HVAC capital repair projects. There's the one that's listed here for $6,968. Then there's the additional project to do all the work, approximately $120,000, and so I'll include that as well.
Thank you.
Great. Member questions?
Any further questions?
Things are actually moving along quite well on schedule.
Anyone have a question?
Yeah, how come there's not 3 bids on the new, employee payment software?
Actually, we looked at 3 different vendors.
That's good.
I have 3 bids.
Yeah.
Not capital.
Just being abstracted.
There were actually 4 bids. I didn't
Oh, I'm
list
sorry, you were low.
them.
Yeah.
We had 4 bids, considered 3, accepted 1.
That's,
There's a lot of.
that's the story that we will need to hear at the board. No doubt.
Do you need
Anyone else?
bids for payments operation?
Real quick question, Jennifer, on the closed projects, or Mitch, if you're answering. On the closed projects, I'm assuming if when the clubhouse retaining wall is closed, it's still got return to capital 73,000, but that was the amount of
The actual, that's why Eric asked for it to be in color, Linda, that, the project is now closed and the return, amount is the unassigned, but we have a last bill to come in.
It's closed for SURF, and it got re-approved as roads. So
Okay.
you'll see it listed
Oh,
again as
gotcha.
project 9918.08 for the clubhouse retaining wall under roads for $138,000.
I'm gonna ask you a quickie, and you maybe know the answer. Do we know why the special general meeting is still open?
It was over budget by about almost $3,000 because in my absence on maternity leave,
They didn't add in the booklets, did they?
No, they-
Coupons, right?
they
That's it.
mailed coupons to everybody. And we have almost 1,000 people on ACH, and those people should not receive coupons. So that was a significant additional printing and postage expense. Those people on ACH should have just gotten a letter, and I left directions to that effect. Unfortunately, that's not what occurred.
I just
And
wondered,
so
I looked at that.
we are doing better than budget in our operations in September, and so we're going to cover that cost operationally. So now it will become a closed
I
project.
wanted to blame the head of me, but I couldn't find a way to do it.
Hey, we try so hard to stay within our budgets as much as we can.
I wasn't saying names.
I know what you're inferring.
Alright, Craig,
Taking
you,
a-
Craig,
taking a
you
page out of
want to throw
Colin's
any spitballs, or?
No, this is fascinating. I'm kind of a numbers guy, so, this was fun.
Yeah. It is well.
Thank you, Bill. Finance side.
Yes, you got
Yeah, move to adjourn.
Second. There we go.
Thank you.
I heard that.
Alright, 8:50.